For today's video, we've got the top 10 Canadian NBA players in the NBA. One of the first videos I made on the channel of late 2020 was ranking the top 15 Canadian NBA players. At the end of the 2020 and 2021 season, I did an updated version of that video, and then we've got another one here today at the start of 2022. So basically coming a yearly thing on the channel to make this video. I like making this video because it allows us to really focus on the Canadian talent in the NBA, which is really getting better and better each year. For those of you that watch my channel consistently, you know that I am a Raptors fan. I am from Canada, and like I said, it's just really nice to see the Canadian talent in the NBA develop, get better each year. And like I said, today we're going to be ranking the top 10. So before we do get into it, it turns out that still only 8% of you guys watching my videos in the last month are subscribed. So if you're new, definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button as we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. With that being said, let's get into the list. A couple honorable mentions before I kick off the top 10. We've got the two Raptors centers, Khem Birch and Chris Boucher. So with Khem Birch, both of these guys are from Montreal, but Khem Birch, I think he's a really underrated player, honestly. Like, does a great job of getting on the glass and getting rebounds, which provides a lot of value for the Raptors. He does a good job being a good interior defender, despite being an undersized center, and can do a good job scoring on the interior as well. But he just misses out because he's not really anything special yet, of course, but I think he definitely could be in the top 10 soon. And then with Chris Boucher, I mean, the last list I made, he was actually in the top 5. He's just having a really rough season this year compared to last year. His three-point shot isn't necessarily falling nearly as much as it was last season. He's not scoring as much at the rim, and even his defense hasn't really been as good and as strong. But I definitely think he will get back to doing what he was doing last season. He's even shown a little bit recently that he is getting back to that. So next list I make, he definitely will be in the top 10, I hope. At number 10, I've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And Alexander Walker, as you know, is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's cousin, and he definitely has a lot of potential. I don't really think he's quite there yet because he's definitely not efficient at all, but he definitely has a lot of potential on both sides of the floor. I mean, just starting with his defensive value, I would definitely classify him as an over-average defender. He can do a good job of being a perimeter defender and a help defender, and definitely uses his length to his advantage defensively. Being 6'6" as a perimeter player definitely gives him a lot of advantage defensively. And then offensively, so far this year, he's definitely shown promise of doing things like creating his own shot off the dribble, but he's just not there efficiency-wise yet. He's putting up 13.5 points per game so far this year, but is shooting a really low 37% from the field, and that's why he's lower on this list than you might think, is because of that, and also how he hasn't really developed that big playmaking aspect of his game yet, which I think will come as he starts to maybe play point guard a little bit more on this Pelicans team and run the offense a bit more. But he definitely has a lot of potential for sure on both ends of the floor. I just don't think he's quite as high on this list as some other people might think. Number 9 on the list, I've got Kelly Olynyk, and so far he has really missed the vast majority of this season with the Detroit Pistons, only having played 10 games so far this year. But as we saw in the second half of last year with the Rockets, he was really starting to emerge, and he definitely had a big role, but he did put up 19 points per game on 67.5% true shooting and almost 40% from 3 with the Houston Rockets last season, which was very impressive. And this year, so far in the 10 games that he's played with the Pistons, he has been playing center, which I really don't think is the right role for Kelly Olynyk because he's not really great defensively and he doesn't really play like a bully ball center. Offensively, he can stretch out the floor and be a stretch 5 and shoot that 3, but I don't really like him in that spot. I think he should be more of a power forward, and I hope to see him get back to playing the role that he was playing on the Rockets when he comes back with the Pistons. Number 8 on the list, I've got Brandon Clark, and Brandon Clark is one of those guys who I really thought he was going to break out either last season or even the season before that. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened, but he's still definitely fitting in very well as a role player on the Memphis Grizzlies off of the bench. He's definitely a very good role threat and lob threat towards the basket. He does a great job of running the pick and roll with some of the guards playing off of the bench on this team, and he's extremely efficient. So far this year, he's only putting up 9 points per game, but doing it on 64% from the field. Definitely doing a very good job around the rim with either going right to the rim and getting a layups or shooting that little floater shot that he has. His three-point shot hasn't developed nearly as well as I thought it was, which is why he's not higher on this list, but he also has been pretty good defensively. He's not a great off-ball defender, but when he's defending on-ball, he can really defend almost anyone on the floor 1 through 5, is very versatile and does a great job defending on ball and protecting the rim. And then he also does a great job of being active and getting on the glass, putting putting up almost 5 rebounds per game so far this season in only 17 minutes per game, which would be over 10 rebounds per game per 36 minutes. So overall, I think he does a really good job in the role he's playing off of the bench right now with the Grizzlies, and I hope to see him get a bigger role to push him even further up this list. At number 7, I've got Chris Duarte, who's come in for the Indiana Pacers, and even early in the year was kind of putting himself into the Rookie of the Year conversation. He's really been kind of that surprise rookie this season who wasn't even taken in the top 10, but has really come out and done a great job playing his role with the Pacers team. And of course, he's on the Pacers, so he's going to get a bigger role than some of the other rookies this season, but he definitely has done a very good job so far this year offensively, putting up 13 points per game and being a very good off-ball player, floor spacer, good catch and shooter from 3, as so far this year he's shooting about 35.5% from 3 on more than 5 attempts per game. So this is slightly above league average for this year, which is pretty impressive for a rookie coming in and being not exactly having high expectations either. He's also done a pretty good job defensively, being mostly a help defender. He provides a little bit of value there as well. So overall, I've been really impressed with what Duarte's been able to do as a rookie this season, and I absolutely think he deserves to go in the top 7 of this list. Number 6, I've got RJ Barrett, and last night I actually watched the game live where he hit that incredible bank shot game winner with 1.5 seconds on the clock. That was insane to watch, a very fun moment for a great Canadian player, and so far this season, Barrett hasn't exactly been very efficient, but I still definitely think he's been impressive and better than people give him credit for. So far this year, he's putting up about 15.5 points per game, only on 51% true shooting, which is about 4% below the league average for this season, but he still does a really good job of getting out in transition. I think he would fit better with a team that gets out in transition a little bit more than the Knicks, since they don't really do it that often, but other than that, when their offense is set, he's pretty much the second option. He does a good job of coming off of screens to get shots and running screens with guys like Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel, running those pick and rolls to get to his spot and become a decent playmaker as well. And defensively, I think he's definitely a better defender than people give him credit for. I mean, sometimes you see him doing a pretty good job of defending, sometimes even the other team's best player, doing a good job of being an on-ball defender. The only thing is he's not a fantastic defender, and that's what separates him from the next 3 guys on this list who are very good and potentially elite defenders. Like the guy I have at number 5 in Lu Dort. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the NBA, to be honest. I mean, I feel like he's definitely a top 5 Canadian player, really one of the best defenders in the league. I mean, this guy's an absolute scrap. He's definitely one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Off ball, he does a fantastic job of just completely fighting through screens. I mean, a lot of people say that defense is mostly effort, and this guy gives some of the best effort that you ever see in the NBA this season. I mean, he's just an insane defender. He does a very good job in the post as well. He's a pretty big guy for being a shooting guard, and defensively, he still does a good job of doing things like defending in the post and being a better interior defender than most people his size, and almost all people his size, to be honest. I mean, he's just that good of a defender. He has great hands as well. That's what separates him from guys like RJ Barrett and Chris Duarte. And then offensively, he's shooting under 40% from the field this year, which is definitely going to hurt his case here, but he still is putting up 16.3 points per game, which is very impressive. He is getting a big opportunity because the Thunder don't really have another reliable second option other than Shea. And the main point is, though, he's an incredible defender. He is decent offensively, but that's not where his main value comes from. He's really entered the top 5 of this list for me because of his incredible defense. Number 4, I've got Dillon Brooks, who is really quietly continuing to get better and better every year in his NBA career. I talked about him in my recent video about the Grizzlies too. Be sure to check that one out as well. He's pretty much the second option on this team now, and offensively, he's really grown throughout his short career so far, and this year he's nearly averaging 20 points per game, just about 19.3 points per game right now. He does a good job of playing bully ball sometimes and using his strength to his advantage, running through the Grizzlies offense effectively and being a good interior scorer, and sometimes stretching it out to 3 and being a decent 3-point shooter as well. His efficiency isn't great, but it's definitely better than the last 2 guys I've had on here, shooting 43% from the field and 33% from 3 almost, an overall 52.2% true shooting for Brooks, and that's not even where most of his value comes. Just like I talked about with Lu Dort, defensively, Dillon Brooks is also a monster. I wouldn't say he's as good a defender as Lu Dort, but but he still is pretty much defending the other team's player every night. Does a great job of playing on-ball defense. If you're an ISO against him, you're probably not going to win that battle, and he's also a very good post defender, again using his size to his advantage. So another great player here who's really emerging year after year and has done a really good job on both ends of the floor as a second option for the Grizz. At number 3, we've got Andrew Wiggins, and it's pretty much unanimous, or it should be unanimous, that he's taking this number 3 spot right now. What an interesting story. I mean, coming into the league as the first overall pick, being thought of as a disappointment with the Timberwolves, and then just really settling into his role nicely here with the Golden State Warriors, as so far this season he's done a really good job offensively, kind of being an off-ball player with Steph Curry and Draymond Green on the floor, being a very, very good three-point shooter, shooting over 43% from 3 so far this year and over 47% from the field overall. When Draymond and Curry are out, he can pretty much be that number 1 guy on this team. We saw it last night against the Pelicans, how he did a really good job attacking the rim, taking advantages of the mismatches, and overall being a pretty good 3-level scorer. And then defensively, like I said, especially last year even as well, when Wiggins was with the Timberwolves, he was thought of as an under-average defender, and he has completely turned that around and really become one of the best defenders in the league. He's a fantastic on-ball defender, a very smart defender as well now and he does a good job of defending in the post, defending on the perimeter, and pretty much defending sometimes the best player on the team every night. Draymond Green's probably the best overall defender on this team, but in terms of on-ball defense, Wiggins might be their best defender. So he's done a fantastic job with playing his role this season as well this year, and I've been very impressed with that. He's pretty much like a super 3-and-D guy who's just obviously a very good 3-point shooter and defender, but just so much more than that as well, and that's why he deserves to be in the top 3 of this list pretty much unanimously at this point. At number 2, I've got Jamal Murray, and for a while now it's been between him and the guy I haven't won for best Canadian player in the league, and I won't spend a lot of time talking about Murray because he obviously hasn't played at all this year, but I'm really excited to see him come back. The last we saw of him in kind of mid last season, or in last season just in general, he was putting up over 20 points per game on pretty damn close to 50, 40, 90 shooting, which is obviously absolutely insane, especially for a point guard with a playstyle like Murray, who's creating his own shot a lot of the time, and also being a pretty good facilitator. That year or last season he put up 5 assists per game before he had that ACL injury, and he was also a pretty good defender as well. So I'm really excited to see him potentially come back this season, and I hope he can be just as good if not better than he was before his injury. And number 1, we've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. People really forgot just how good Shai was because he missed most of last year. I mean, people are talking about him a lot this year with how he's carrying the OKC Thunder, and I would honestly say that last year Shai is maybe even better than this year Shai. His jump shot really isn't falling that much this year, only shooting 28.5% from 3 so far this year, but he's still doing a fantastic job of creating his own shots, creating shots for others. He's a really dynamic player. He has great handles and does a great job of changing speeds and being quick when he needs to, beating his opponent off the dribble, being a very effective interior scorer this year, a pretty good mid-range and 3-point shooter when he's at his best. That shot, like I said, this year so far hasn't really been following that much, but he can be a very good jump shooter. Last year shooting almost 50, 40, 90, and I hope he can get back to that as well. And so far this year overall, putting up almost 23 points per game, just under 5 rebounds, and just over 5 assists per game. He's putting up 5 assists per game, by the way, with the worst spacing team in the league, the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. I mean, he could be putting up easily 7 assists per game if he was on a team with good spacing and good 3-point shooting around him. So I've really been impressed with what Shai's been able to do really over the last 2 years, and I wasn't impressed with NBA fans forgetting how good he was after last season. He's definitely still the best Canadian player in the NBA right now and deserves a lot more recognition. So there you have it. That's all I've got for you guys in today's video. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to comment down below your thoughts on the best Canadian players in the NBA and how you would rank these players, and I'll see you all next video.